Jonathan, how's it going, man?
What now?
How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad, man. Not too bad at all. Too bad at all.
Fun.
Getting tired a little earlier this week. It seems like, oh, man, I think I piled too much on Mondays.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Jay, it's only the beginning of the week. I'm sorry to remind you.
I know.
Friday is a long way to go.
I think I piled too much on Mondays. Tuesdays is no different. Wednesdays, it's just a lot. It's okay though. It's okay. All right.
Hey, folks.
We got the
Thank
TAC
you for
elections
joining.
out of the way. That was really good. We got that settled.
Yep.
All right.
Hey, Jay, do you mind if you host, because my husband is being a bit loud on the other side of me on his meeting.
All good. I got it. All right, good deal. Well, thank you everyone for joining this edition of our supply chain integrity positioning meeting, where we talk about a few of the initiatives that we have currently in flight, our supply chain integrity working group, and how we're positioning those within the community and externally within the market. See, we have, before we do anything else, we'd like to welcome all of our newcomers. Oh, also, yeah, thanks, Melba. Please go ahead and hit the agenda doc there with the attendance as well. Mark your attendance so that we know you're here. Also, after that, if we have any newcomers to this meeting, please introduce yourselves so that we know who you are.
I see one newcomer,
I see one newcomer.
and I can call him out because I invited him. So
Call them out.
don't be shy,
Call them
Matt.
out.
Hi, hopefully you can hear me. Yeah, I'm Matt Coleman. I work for IBM Security, and I'm based in the UK and work on, well, I'm the EMEA container security lead for IBM Security, so all things container related and DevSecOps have an interest in, and some of the stuff that we've been looking at is also then going across into software supply chain security, and so comes nicely into what South is doing.
Excellent. Well, welcome, Matt. Glad you're here. Let's see. Is there anything? So, because this is one of a few SIG meetings that we do that are surrounding our larger initiatives. Is there one particular thing you wanted to do here in this SIG meeting, learn from this SIG meeting, and then how can we help you stay a while? Yeah, how can we help you stay a while?
As Melba said, she's invited me along to it, so hopefully it's the right place to be. I'm interested in the integrity around the pipeline as one thing, but also related to the kind of view that I've been forming of, and Melba will know this because we were discussing it, this kind of inception model of how the different aspects of the integrity all get wrapped around each other. So your build pipeline itself has got to have undergone the source integrity checks for how you build it and things like that, and that whole kind of looping in and out of how it's done is a point of interest for me. So just trying to really get to grips and understand what's the thinking in this space, and how we could look at then taking this to our clients, and making sure that we're we're talking about it in the right way, and so developing the right way in terms of how we want to talk about it internally.
Excellent. Well, you know what? This is a great place to do that. Great place to do that. One of the initiatives that we're currently thinking about, along with Salsa, S2C2F, Fresca, and how they're positioned together, also how we're communicating them even separately out in the community. One of the things that we're also doing is we're working on a complete supply chain integrity framework that we're going to build that will identify even more gaps, perhaps, that we can evangelize and get filled across the supply chain security spectrum. I think one of the things we should think about here and as our 90, right? So if we did a 30, 60, 90, you know, the view of things that we're working on, maybe the 90 view should be how are we positioning that framework that's going to be created across the other communities, across the market in general, because I think that stuff is very important as well. And Matt, you're in the right place for it, so we'll lean on you a lot with some of your thoughts, and thank you very much for that. All right, I think if we're following the agenda, our next item then would be to turn over to Jennifer Bly to discuss updates, quotes, and other items. I think we have a Melba Jennifer 1-2 punch here on our agenda. Take it away.
Yeah, sure. So I was hoping that we could take a look at the press release draft, and Melba, I know you have put in some comments. I feel like we need to be able to finalize this relatively soon, so that we can begin pitching it to the press, like under embargo. So we do kind of are working with a really tight deadline here. And in terms of like what else we need to do for the press release, I know you put in some messaging points about speaking to the different audiences. I'd like to keep that open for like a more general audience who might first be learning about salsa and what it is, and kind of how they can get involved. So I think we just kind of need to have that mindset as we finalize this content, like what's going to be easy for people to access and understand. So do we want to take a look now and
Yes,
kind
please.
of hammer out the last few pieces?
Yes.
I'm a little stumped on where to go at that. If you scroll down a little bit in the sort of the benefits section, what this group would envision including there. So I will turn to those of you here to help build out that part.
I can't raise my hand. So I'll talk, and if I interrupt somebody, please, I apologize since I can't raise my hand.
Well, Melba, we'll have you, and then we'll have Mike afterwards. That's the next hand I see raised.
Okay, thank you. So Jennifer, the reason why I brought up the profiles or the personas was because I noticed some verbiage around consumer and then developers. And so I was like, well, what about the implementers, right? And what about, the CISO compliance folks? Are they beneficiaries? We can condense the messaging, but there's no mention anywhere. The only mention is consumer and sec analyst of SecOps. So I feel like we're missing a big chunk of the audience. And so we need to craft something for them. And I'm not a wordsmith by any means, so I just did my best with the implementers. So that was just my take on why I made the comments, because I feel like we're missing a wider audience that we're trying to target.
Yeah.
Mike,
And
do you have something you want
oh,
to add?
sure, yeah. I think the
I'll talk about it a little bit at the highest level, and then go into the individual, I think, roles as well. You know, because I think one of the things that we've been driving home in a lot of the various blogs and other things that we've been releasing, right, is the goal here is it's supposed to help, you know, secure the supply chain. It does so by making you feel more confident that what the build is telling you is accurate, not necessarily that, you know, and I'm not a wordsmith when it comes to this stuff, but it's accurate. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's safe, just that it's accurate, and so that you know that, you know, the build itself is not, you know, if something goes wrong, it wasn't the build. You have less things to look at. There's less things to worry about. And so then to kind of go into some of the stuff that we were discussing about, like, then who, you know, each of the individual people, right? It's stuff like, hey, if I'm if I'm a consumer of, you know, of software, I feel more confident in software that provides SALSA attestations that it is, in fact, you know, safe and trustworthy, right? If I am somebody who runs a build service, right, I can, if my build service is SALSA compliant, I know that I'm serving my customers right, and that, you know, my piece of the supply chain picture is safe, right? Like, and I think that's kind of the way I've been framing it.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. Mike, do you or Melba kind of want to take a shot at getting that down here, and then I'm happy to take it and kind of wordsmith it from there. If we can just kind of get it laid out. Okay, cool. Any other thoughts on the benefits section here? My one comment, in terms of what these groups are called, are they like widely used terms? I mean, is someone going to understand what implementer is? I don't know.
Yeah, so I think this was the rewording that someone mentioned. The beneficiaries, I think, was something new. I don't think that's part of the PR, but I think in the spec today, it's this. And I think they might be changing it to these three. So Matt, oh wait, Jay, I don't know
we
if
are not.
you're not.
This is still the first three you have there.
Three.
This is still correct. So
Okay,
it's
so
like, you know, build system implementers and providers will be concerned, and
build
package
system.
manager, ecosystem, that's all good.
Okay, so then this is still not implemented in the spec.
Well, producers and consumer, they are part of that, yes.
Yeah, but these three are.
Yes, because the
Okay.
build system, they do produce artifacts, so they are producers.
Yeah, okay, so I thought producers in this case meant the companies producing software and the attestations. So they would own
They're
the build
using build
system.
systems. So
Yeah, okay.
what you said is not wrong, but they use the build system to produce the attestations. So they are the producers.
Got it. So that's a good point, Jennifer. Arno, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the announcement, this announcement, and
I
whether we
briefly
can.
looked at it earlier, but I was busy. So the news, by the way, is we are done with all the pull requests against the spec. And so Mark Lodato is working on the pull request to publish RC2. Should happen today, which puts us on track to get the final version published April 19th for the schedule. Because we need 2 weeks of review. to comply with the community specification license framework.
Okay.
And then just curious to ask a question here. Do we have a timing for the final release? And is there a point at which we're going to confirm, yes, we really are moving forward?
Yeah, that's
Timeline.
so. Yeah, the release would be April 19th, and I guess we will know. When do we have the salsa spec meeting? Will be on the Monday. I guess that's when we will have to make the call, depending on whether we have, anybody has found some problem. We have to fix the spec in a way that requires us to do an RC3. Then we would have to cancel or postpone the release of the final version by another 2 weeks or so.
Okay, well, we're gonna pre-pitch this to the press, so
But
yeah,
for
that would have
now,
implications.
yep, I realize that.
Do we need to hold off
So-
and
Sorry, go ahead.
not?
I think there's pretty high level of confidence that this is it, right? Mike, you agree?
Yeah, I think it's pretty high confidence. Like unless somebody comes in out of the blue with
Yeah.
some sort of major thing that everybody missed. But I think the problem rate is if we go back to sort of the community specification, as Arno had mentioned, like we're, even if all of us think, yeah, it's good to go, we still need to wait 2 weeks. And if for any sort of major objections.
So Jennifer, how what's your I guess how much time do you need to get this to the press exactly? So I guess the nature of my question is, let's say for instance RC2 comes out, somebody finds something that says, oh, this needs to get changed, and now we have to move our 19th date. How much time do you need? Because we could still get the press release done. It could just be waiting for us to get a solid on, unless that's not the process, right? I mean,
the more time the better is what I'll say. And KubeCon is that week, so a lot of the media are busy. So the sooner that we can start outreach, the better. The sooner we know where we stand, the better.
so
minimum of 1 week, 2 weeks is better.
We got to type 3 to 4 weeks hitting off of there, because you have KubeCon, you have RSA, you have Open Summit, you got all of these conferences that are back to back to back to back. So I mean, any time within there will probably be great. I mean, you want to get it ahead of all of them, but in the instance that somebody finds something wrong, by the way, I would love to see it released on the 19th. That's my birthday. We have a release on my birthday. It's pretty nice. You know what I mean? I would like that.
This is a hint. We must all take note that, on the 19th, we need to wish a happy birthday to Jay. No, but I mean, so like I said, I expect, we are going to publish RC2 today. This is very clear now. So that means, legally, we can publish the final specification on the 19th, pending, assuming there is no big problem that got raised. But so the question, assuming we publish the final spec on the 19th, when can we have the press release and all this stuff?
We can have it ASAP. I just need to know, the timeline. What time to push the button?
Okay. So I think the 19th,
in general,
we
a lot
should
of
be able
folks
to do that.
A lot of folks put press releases out at 9 a.m. Eastern. That's a standard. It doesn't have to be that time. We can adjust
So,
as needed.
in fact, we should be able to publish in the 18th by the end of the day and do the press release on the 19th.
That might make a lot of sense. Yeah.
I think that's
Are you going to
Um,
confirm
also,
that?
To the
I
18th,
saw that down at the bottom of the going back to the press release, we have a few of the contributing organizations with quotes. Making sure that these are actual quotes from those organizations and not just the individual contributing that just happens to be from those organizations. I'm pretty sure, I want to say I know the due diligence was done, but I wanted to make sure that was mentioned here, because it's just in the off chance that it's not, you know, the individual that was working. Remember, we're all volunteers, right? So, you know, making sure that these companies that the individuals are volunteering from are on board saying these things about salsa, rather than just the individual saying these things. I want to make sure that that's here for the recording. I mean, I'm pretty sure we did the due diligence, but in our due diligence from our group, making sure we did that. Go ahead, Melba.
I figured out a way of raising my hand.
I saw that. I saw it.
So that's a good question, Jay. So Jennifer, this I know Jeff Bork was working on, and he put it in here. So are you, like with Jeff Bork, are you working directly with these people?
I mean, I think it's up to each individual organization to get internal approvals within their own organization. But as far as I'm aware, yes, that has been the process that each organization has followed, although I don't have visibility in which teams reviewed the quotes on their end or which ones need to. So that's an expectation coming into this.
Okay. So let me put that in the notes. Thank you.
Mike. Go ahead.
Yeah, whoops, sorry. Yeah, so yeah, I was just gonna say, actually, one of the folks who did kind of get back to me about most likely not being able to contribute a quote was John Meadows from Citi, because he did sort of say getting something like a quote is potentially more like over a month in approvals internally where he is, which is of course very different than my situation, where it's like, oh, I make the decision. But yeah.
But Jennifer, I mean, normally you guys did the marketing group or what? Saying, hey, there's an opportunity for what's to the press release, because I mean, this is kind of like one of the benefits to the members, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it needs to be people who are using salsa, right, or contributing. Yeah, so been working with the comms representatives from these different organizations. Yeah.
Can we put down there, boy, oh boy, can we put down there Microsoft with a pending as well?
Sure. Here, how about, because most of these are already filled out, how about we put, oh wait, this is alphabetical, isn't it?
Yeah, let's just do it alphabetical order.
Okay.
Just to kind of avoid any
Yeah. Favoritism.
Hey, I want to be
difficulties
first.
there.
Yeah, no, I was thinking in terms of clarity of what's missing versus not, to put the ones that are missing up top, but that makes perfect sense.
And then Jay, for Microsoft, will you be providing that, or is there someone that I should contact?
I'm gonna say not no, but hell no. But I'm working internally to see if
Gotcha. Okay.
to see if we can't get somebody a little bit above my pay grade that could say a couple of words, if that's what we want to do. I just this is me saying I don't know that I would like my org to be left out of the loop on this, being that I'm heavily involved in it. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, I think that's where I'm going with that. Oh goodness.
Yeah, and if there's any connections that I can help make, just let me know.
So
But those
did
words
put-
will not be coming from me directly. I think I want to make that clear again.
Isaac,
I am
pending
on board.
Isaac.
I just, you know, from a company perspective, I don't want to speak on behalf of them. I don't do. Yeah.
Hey Melba, I'll be able to get you a quote from Google.
And Chain Guard, I don't see anybody from Chain Guard on here, but that doesn't mean that they're not.
Kaylin is working on that
Oh,
and has
you're gonna have
confirmed.
to spell that. Pending Kaylin?
Kaylin.
Okay. Okay, anything else that you need, Jennifer?
Yeah, just in terms of the benefits section, if you could spend some time getting that fleshed out, that's the main thing. And then we can get this finalized by end of week and off to the TAC and off to the press.
Awesome.
All right, good deal. We're so we set aside 20 or 30 minutes for that, which was great. I mean, we're coming right up to it. I think the next thing we have on our agenda here are our blog updates. We're starting with Mike's breadth and depth of salsa, and I did owe you a good read on that. But it looked, I mean, the quick scan looked okay. But I guess we could talk about that now. So there was that. There was a status on what is Fresca, draft of bill versus source it, and you know, a couple of other blog posts here. But we'll start at the top with breadth and depth of salsa. Let's go into it, Mike.
Sure. Yeah. Very high level sort of overview on the different sort of just the general reason why we have the different tracks for salsa, right? With the high level idea being, right, we're starting with the build track because the build is one of the most critical pieces in the software, you know, development lifecycle. And so, you know, that's why the initial focus is on that build. And we removed elements regarding stuff like source from there because we didn't want to kind of like end up with something that didn't do that piece justice. And, you know, given the limited time we have, you know, we wanted to just kind of get that out really well. So that got pushed out. And then, you know, the idea is that we'll move forward with stuff like source and dependency tracks and maybe other tracks in the future. And yeah, it's a little bit of a call to action just to kind of get a bit more involved. And so far, I've gotten a lot of great feedback on it. A lot of folks were like, hey, oh wow, that like really answered the question as to what the scope of like this Salsa 1.0 release is about and what this initial stuff that we've been working on with Salsa is really about. And I think it really struck home for a lot of folks.
Excellent. Yeah, I especially like I like the fourth paragraph there where it lined out future future thoughts and future initiatives such as source. And then there was the dependency track and all that. I like that a lot, and I liked I liked what my thought process did around that. So I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that fifth paragraph there, the fifth paragraph there as well. Yeah, good, man. I mean, you know, I like I said, I did a quick scan and I was like, oh, this does a great job of providing the kind of perspective that's needed to this point. Yeah, man.
Yep. Next up on the what is Fresca sort of write-up. You know, still looking for feedback. I got a lot of great feedback actually from VMware. What's his name? Tim Pepper, who gave me a lot of great feedback on the initial sort of stuff, as well as, you know, Arno and Jay had given feedback on in one of the meetings. And so I believe it's in a, I think it's in a reasonable spot from at least the content perspective, but it aligned to the goals of SCI is kind of where I wanted to kind of get some additional feedback on. With the, once again, for folks who are not super familiar, right, like there is a project called Fresca. It's a secure build example, and it works and everything else, but we're trying to kind of figure out, due to sort of changing priorities and also some confusion in the community, what can we be doing to make it get more folks contributing to it, garner more interest, see where we want to kind of where we want to see Fresca in the future, and get folks, the two main folks we're looking for, right, are we're looking for use cases from potential end users, even if it's just, hey, it makes sense that Fresca is like an educational example. It doesn't really make sense as an actual tool that gets used. That's fine, because then we just helps us focus on what we want to push with Fresca. And then in addition to that, whichever way we end up going with it, we need some additional sort of hands-on keyboard engineers to actually work on some of the elements in Fresca. And yeah, for Melba, there's definitely, the potential there. I think the thing is just, we kind of want to understand a little bit more about, do folks want to have a secure build system that packages up all these different things and deploys it out? Or are folks really interested in stuff like, they want to focus more on the Salsa GitHub stuff and more on stuff like, could you have a Jenkins plugin that secures the Jenkins pipeline to make it more Salsa? And that's where we should be focusing our efforts and stuff like that. But that's kind of, where this is at. And originally it was like several pages long, like 7 pages. It's now only 2 pages. And I think it really highlights the high level things we're trying to do, while also providing documentation for folks who are interested more about how is this architected? How can I get involved? They can join. Jonathan?
I can answer your question of whether or not people want to rebuild their entire CI system or patch in something new. You can make it so that you can patch in security. People will take it. They're not going to reinvent everything. If they have to start from scratch, it's going to be a non-starter for most people. So that's just the realities. I mean, there's idealist views of the world, but let's be practical about how people actually do things. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no. So to be clear, I agree. I just think, there's obviously also some practicalities, right? If you look at, for example, a lot of the folks who, and I don't want to go into like deep into the problems with CI, but like if you look at like, Jenkins, right? Jenkins is a tool that tends to be sort of open by default. And so a lot of the things make it, that a lot of the security things that folks want to do is just, making, let's say, a Jenkins or making somebody's Jenkins into something Salsa compliant is probably difficult. With that said, there might be other things we could do with Fresca to say, hey, maybe Fresca is a series of best practices or something like that, along with some examples so that folks could start following. But yeah, I think, that's something we quickly discovered is that even if you package up, hey, this thing deploys out, Spiffy Spire, Kubernetes, and all the different things like Tecton chains that you would need to create Fresca. Folks are still, going to say, hey, how does this fit into my GitHub Actions, or how does this fit into my, my local Jenkins installation or something like that. But yeah, if there's additional sort of ideas on like how can we shape Fresca to be more like that, I think we're also open to that as well. Even if it's something like Fresca becomes just the secure builder piece, like we've wrapped up, we've written some stuff around, build kit, or we've written some stuff around, a build container to sort of say, here is a secure build container that runs purely the Salsa step. That's something else we can look at. Arna?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say, I mean, I generally agree with what Jonathan said, with one caveat, I guess, is that, well, there is, not everybody uses modern technologies yet. Companies tend to, a lot of companies are way behind. And so as they move to new technology like containers, cloud, they have an opportunity to adopt new build systems. And so there's still, it's not an all or nothing. I agree in general, people will, are attached to the system they have and they will patch it, but they're not going to, willy-nilly change it entirely. But as they move to other technologies, they adopt new environments, and then it's an opportunity to use new tools. That's all.
Okay. So we go into the next blog. I think that's Melba and Chris that are working on build versus source.
Yeah, I don't think Chris is on today. Oh, wrong one, wrong click. This one. I was planning on redoing some of the images so that it's more readable. But Chris has definitely helped with the wordsmithing and adding some content. I know Mike had created the why the tracks, but this really dives deeper into why separating build versus source, because some people might think, okay, yeah, it makes sense to separate vulnerability, right? It makes sense to separate provenance. But it might not make sense to separate build and source. And so this kind of goes through that use case of why we want to do it, because you can't claim trust when you don't see or control everything. And so that's what we're trying to convey here. Again, looking for any additional feedback. Definitely need to revamp some of the imagery, but that's the imagery that I have right now. Oh, and now I can reference Mike's blog. Now that it's also.dev. And then for Jay, I did want to add like a S2C2F flavor in here somewhere, but I don't know too much since I've not been able to join the meetings on what we could add in here.
Yeah, we can add some, especially so Mike's blog, believe it or not, you put a reference to his blog in there. And this is what I was alluding to before. When he threw that dependency track thing in there, you're talking about S2C2F. My thought immediately went to the application of controls from S2C2F against that dependency track, looking at how effective those controls are from a salsa perspective. That was where my mind immediately went to that, and that's I can't think of a better 1-2 punch, especially when it comes to dependencies. From a consumer standpoint on injection, I'm going into my technical thinking with this, but that would be a great place to place a discussion about S2C2F and the flavor therein when we consider future tracks. So based on what Mike's blog said, this might be a build versus source versus dependency. Just to keep in line with that, like I said, I think just when I scanned it over, I was like, man, this is all right, and it kind of speaks to the stuff that even we, and I say we, I mean me, you, and Isaac were talking about. This was months ago when we sat here trying to figure out all these things and how they're working together. This is a nice tight thing that Mike's put together in a blog that we could actually reference. We can actually reference here to talk about all the other things that we're working on as well. So that was actually where my thought was going. So when I saw that, I thought that was great too. So my 2 cents.
So then, are you wanting to then expand this to include that the dependency track? Because originally it was just going to be build versus source.
Well, let's I don't want to say that by myself. Let's bring that to the group, right? Because Mike put it in his blog. I know Isaac had mentioned this one time in a few previous meetings. Let's as a group think about it, right? I think unless we should bring this before the salsa, the actual salsa sig, and discuss it there, right? I mean, maybe that's where we should discuss it, decide on it, and then bring it back, right? So that we're in lockstep.
Yeah.
I don't see why not, but no, I'd rather, as a group, we decide that's because the dependency track is new. That would be the maybe it'd be the first time we see it in writing, second or third time we've heard it in voice, right?
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we can bring it to the spec sig, and yeah, the stuff that's in here has been talked about before in a GitHub issue, but I don't think we have a GitHub issue on the dependency track part.
No.
So I can put that down. I don't have anything else for that one.
Cool. And the next one is a blog about This Is Us.
Yeah.
It's all of us together. It's
Yeah,
all of us
this,
together on that blog.
yeah, this was everyone in this also positioning group working on this together. And what we really need help on is, one, making sure that the messaging still makes sense based off of the changes, because we stopped because something was changing from underneath us. I don't remember what it was. And so we stopped writing this. So if folks could take a look, see, does this still make sense the way it's written? If
You know
not,
what? I
needs to
think we paused. I don't know. I think we paused just to see what would come of the RC and what would end up becoming 1.0 before we talked about that. And then of course now we're talking about the one talking about new tracks, I mean, and how that new track could even impact how we're going about the other stuff that we're working on too. We're even talking about Fresca, perhaps how Fresca might play in this as well. I think that's why we paused. I think that right now we might have enough information to continue and drive forward.
Yeah. So we'll need to we'll have to have a title. We don't have a catchy title at all. But yeah, if folks can take a look and see, what needs to be tweaked, and what needs to be added, that would be really, really, really helpful. We also don't have a call to action. We didn't finish that part, but I think this could help with the 1.0 launch of kind of explaining from a persona perspective why development should care, right? And if we wanted to, we can do other personas as well.
Okay. All right, and I think the next thing we wanted to do was talk about the roadmap. I think the roadmap is next.
Oh, I see.
Or update to the road. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. Yeah, you have another one.
Oh, yeah. Just wanted to throw out that, so just released an article today on, just from my end personally, released an article kind of going into SigStore and Salsa, and with actual code examples, if folks are interested in that as well. This is just a separate thing.
Oh, I love it. It's so cute. If I could cuddle with my monitor, I would.
but yeah, this is just sort of a just an introductory article on, like, and I'm making a comparison here, like, hey, how do I know I can trust this cat? How do I know I'm trusting the software that I'm ingesting? Well, let's take a look and let's use SigStore along with the Salsa attestations to kind of show that sort of stuff.
Nice. I like this.
Cool.
I do have a question for you, Mike.
Yeah.
Do you participate in SigStore? Anybody on here participate in SigStore?
if I have the time, I do, but I often don't have the time. But I do participate in Sigstore. Yeah.
Okay.
Same. Yeah, me too.
Oh, wait, who's the me too? Sorry.
Sorry, that was Isaac. It's me.
Hey, Isaac. Sorry. Yeah, the reason why I ask is because we were signing SBOMs with our own internal cosign, and it seems like Sigstore changed something recently where if you have a private installation of Sigstore, it will say like insecure. You have to put like some insecure flag. So I thought that was interesting way of saying that when, you know, companies can do a private. And if you try to verify the blob, it says, you know, error can't, there's no record of it in Recore. Well, yeah, because we have a private instance. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, so that particular thing, and it's something I think that a lot of folks are confused about, and there's probably some ways that to make it a little better. But I believe the idea is if you're running your own Recore internally, it'll work. You just point to the internal Recore. But if you're not running Recore at all and you're just signing it like with a key and you're distributing that stuff, you know, Sigstore views that sort of to be outside of its like threat model, and you know, like, hey, we don't really are looking at, we're not really looking at those sorts of things, and we're not, you know, we're not fully supporting those sorts of use cases. So that's why they view it as insecure. I think that there's legitimate questions as to like, but is it actually insecure, or is it just a slightly different use case with different attack patterns that need to be considered? I think that's worthwhile to kind of talk with about them, but that's kind of why they sort of said it that way, is they believe Recore to be a core piece of Sigstore, and if you use cosign without it, they, you know, they don't believe that to be, at least the maintainers of Sigstore don't believe that to be secure by their definition.
Yeah, I'm curious because, you know, if private organizations, right? Like if we think of IBM, if we have our own Sigstore installed private, including Recore, and we're doing SLSA attestations, and we sign with Sigstore, and we give that attestation to a third party, they can't necessarily verify that blob.
Yep.
Because it's private, but that is on purpose, right? So that's a use case. I get the public, right? But there's also a use case for private. So I'm curious how this will impact that implementation of SLSA, because I know there's very much wanting to use Sigstore for signing these artifacts.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. That's something that needs, you know, and I think I literally, you know, I have those same concerns. So yeah, I think that's worthwhile to sync with them.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, now we're getting into the SLSA 2023 roadmap. I took a quick look at the. I mean, are there two different things going on in this deck?
Yeah, there is. So I don't see Josh on here or Chris. So this was the, sorry, my mouse lately, it's very, very sensitive. And okay, I want to zoom in, but clearly that didn't work the way I wanted it to. So if I zoom out, it makes it bigger. That's interesting. This was the original with some extra added. When Chris and Josh and I went through, they were saying, well, maybe instead of putting it by quarter, we should do it by priority, like of high level priority, but there are ecosystems or, you know, the folks that are implementing the tooling that want dates. Obviously, we haven't had a good track record of, of releasing on schedule, and it's because we're volunteers. So how do we present the roadmap? Do we want to say quarters or halves, Or do we want to say, this is what we're tackling in order of priority? And for example, this SALSA build level 4 is in parallel to SALSA level 1 to 2 source specification, right? And it would just be a minor version release to what's already out there, which would be 1.0. So there's a lot of uncertainty on how we should present the roadmap in terms of either priority or in terms of like actual timelines, because depending on the group that's looking at this, they would want to know timelines versus maybe they don't care and they just want to see what we're tackling first. That's why there's 2, if that's what you were asking.
Well, that and the OpenSSF stuff down at the bottom.
Oh, yeah, this was to make sure we're aligned. This was just like
Okay.
backup, like to make sure that anything that we're doing is being aligned at the TAC level, that we're not doing something that's really off.
Yeah.
And this is the supply chain priorities that we created. Right.
In terms of SALSA specifically talked about above, I think that may require some massaging a bit. Once we come out with 1.0, I think 1.0 needs to breathe a little bit. And then I'm not sure whether you tackle level 4 build at the same time you tackle source 1 and 2. I think you can let the current 1.0 breathe for a while, start getting into source, maybe even dependency kind of, not at the same time. You could do them in sprints, but I think that build level 4 can come a little bit later. I think you have a little bit of breathing room before you get adopters onto level 1 as it stands, and then potentially run into you could prevent yourself from coming out with a source and dependency track for trying to over rotate on the build level. I mean, we can PM that all day. I don't want to PM that right here. I think that might need to cut. I think that needs to be done in the specification SIG and not here. So I won't throw my views on that. That could be PM'd all day. But because of that,
I'm inclined to agree with you, Jay. Like I actually, I think in my instincts lead me in the same direction there. I would say beginning to nudge outwards horizontally in the scope is probably a higher priority than getting to build level 4. I think I'm super glad to see this come together, because I do think that part of adoption for SALSA 1.0 will be people will be looking at SALSA 1.0 and go, okay, this looks reasonable, it's good. Now give me a strong sense that this has a future and a team working on it that I can believe in. And I think that's what the roadmap goes to substantiate. And so even publishing our intent and our roadmap is more important than putting resources against it, and in some sense, and that, hey, we have an active community, a roadmap, a set of priorities. Here's what you can expect over the next 12 to 24 months. But Jay, I think my instincts are the same as yours, that I would put source above build level 4 in order to have a proof point that we can extend SALSA horizontally before we focus on extending it vertically further.
Yeah, you want I mean, as much as you want to be right and in compliance, you also want to have a sense of accomplishment as well. And I think for future releases, it can include level 4, but that gives, I mean, so I hate playing the psychological game, but it gives people something to look forward to. And then at the same time, you're coming out with source, and then that gives them a different area of focus, right? So that they can prioritize what's important to them organizationally. I mean, like I said, I don't know that I want to over rotate on that in the positioning meeting. Spec meeting, we can go in though. We can go all the way in on that on spec.
So for the record, I
our
agree with you
purposes
guys said.
Go ahead, Arnold.
I agree with what you guys said also, but as you were saying, Jay, this is not the group to decide, you know,
Yeah.
so I think we can defer that discussion of the exact roadmap. I think this group to the SIG, you know, spec SIG, but I think what this group needs to focus on is more on the communication aspect of that.
Yeah,
So I think for this slide in particular, I think, you know, everything we talked about just now added in, but I think we table this until we get our comments, even our comments, right? We may not come to a consensus in the spec here early on. That might be a 30, 60, 90 situation. But I think once we get our comments over there, then we can come back here and put that in here and let this be working while we come to a consensus there.
okay. Yeah, I brought it here today was more for the deadlines versus like, you know, quarters versus, you know, priority. Because this is a positioning matter. Like, how do you communicate that, right? Do you
Absolutely.
do it by timeline or do you do it by priority? Which one would be better? But I completely agree on the actual decisions. Not sure.
There's another item which we may have to at least have on the radar is the conformance/certification program.
Yes.
It's been talked about. It's, you know, I don't see much progress, but, you know, at some point it's supposed to happen. And if it happens, I think this is something we should also, you know.
Arnold, I think even that conversation needs to come up a little higher to the actual salsa sig, because I think we need to decide on whether or not this is I mean, you know, for compliance purposes, or for compliance purposes, for control purposes, or both, right? Are we implementing controls that someone's going to build a compliance requirement around? Is this going to be both control based, and then of course that conformance program, right? That needs to be discussed a little bit higher. So I'm right there with you. But for our positioning, we need to include that as well. And also, right now our blogs are doing a good job of not I hate to say dancing around that part, but that's going to be something that needs to be discussed a little bit later on. We got 2 minutes left, and there's one additional item about with a to do, and that to do is around.
Oh, that was me recording that we need to do our gap analysis. You mentioned it earlier, or somebody mentioned it, right? Because not only do we need it for comms, but we have a panel coming up in about a month. So we need to get started on that like now. So that was me just recording that we need to start doing that.
Yep. Yeah, let's get there. We may need to set up a meeting for that, separate meeting for that, because you're right. We're going to be on stage here in about a month, and we need to sit down and get our our talking points straight.
I
choreograph our appearance.
I was totally planning to have some kind of discussion among us. You know, people would be on the panel at least before we get to the stage.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, good deal. We got through our agenda. Wonderful. We have 1 minute for any opens if anybody wants to toss anything out there. If not, thank you all very much.
Nice talking to you all.
Thanks everyone for joining.
See ya.
Thanks, Jay, for covering while my chatty husband was being loud.
You got it. You got it. All right.
Thanks.
Bye.